after 7. It's Thursday, April 28th, 2022, right here on the link. Wahoosie Chris. Let's head into the KUAM News Link Zoom room where the acting superintendent of education, Joe Sanchez, is online here. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, good morning, Chris. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you.
I guess we'll just start with the graduation stuff because we just had a couple seniors from Simon Sanchez talking about Sharkchella, right? So have we ironed out just like school to school all the different graduation plans for this year?
So if I'm not mistaken, I think all schools have chosen to do kind of like a regular graduation, as we call it. I'm not sure all the sites. I know they're working out their venues, but we're pretty excited. We're happy for this particular class. We know that the last 2 years have been really hard, and we know that graduation is such an important experience for all students. And although we know the last 2 years, they're definitely not going to forget their graduation. I mean, they're going to have stories to tell for years. But there really isn't any experience like having a regular graduation where you get together physically with your classmates and you get called on stage and people cheer and all of those things. So really, it's a set of events that we're really looking forward to.
Well, with about a month left of school, Joe, I know they got two bills introduced. One was to exempt the 180 days of instruction requirement, as well as the 75 service learning hours for this school year. I guess just your read on how confident you are in these measures passing. And then I wanted to kind of ask, would we be violating any tenets of the Adequate Education Act should we pass this waiver for the 180 days of instructional time?
So that's actually why we requested the waiver, is to make sure that we're not going to be violating the Adequate Education Act. We're not getting any indications that it won't pass. We're very hopeful that the senators will continue to provide us that support. We met with them on 2 occasions. We had an informational briefing to kind of start the request. And the second time around, we testified during the legislative hearing. And we did get a number of questions and concerns from the senators, but we believe we answered their questions. We understand that it's, the concept is not supported by everybody, right? Like they think that we're just cutting the days, but, it was actually at our request. We discussed this at length with our teachers. We discussed this at length with our administrators, and we felt really also with the students that they are, they're working really hard already. I mean, they've come back to school. They understand that they're behind, so they're working really hard to get back on track. Same thing with the teachers, that extending the school year would have just added to the continued stress and anxiety, and we really didn't feel that it would be that much helpful. So really we want to just end the year like normal as possible, and then start off next year going strong. So yeah, we have no reason to believe that it won't pass, and we continue to hope for the senator's support.
I want to ask, because with my kids, I'm sorry, guys, proud dad, my kids, they didn't miss a beat during the pandemic. I mean, in fact, it's almost like they got smarter. But how serious is the learning loss, Joe? Because, I mean, I'm looking at this situation, and the way I see it as it is what it is, right? We can't extend the school year, and I understand that we're basically going to put our head down and try and, catch up next school year. But just when you talk about the pandemic learning loss, it seems kind of immeasurable, but just how large is the impact, and how do you guys plan to address that, I guess, moving forward?
Yeah, that's a tough question, because it is serious. I mean, we knew it was going to be serious when we moved into it. I mean, just not having regular school for a whole year, and then the following year having sporadic school, I would call it that, where it's partial online and whatnot. You're definitely going to see some of the impact. Some of the measurable impact that we saw immediately during the pandemic was the failure rate. The failure rate almost doubled. So you went from, a normal 20%, all the way up to almost 40% in some cases, which is almost half, really of the student population. But the thing is when they got back to school, especially when they got back to this school year, partial online, but then eventually they got back face to face. We were looking at the data, and the first set of data that came in, doing the assessments that they took at the beginning of the year, yeah, that showed quite a bit. It's like the students scoring at the lowest rung were like 20 or 30 points higher than normal, which was, somewhat alarming. But then when we started to look at their grades over the semester, and then just the recent assessments we took in January, it's really matching up with what the teachers are telling us when we meet with them. We had regular meetings the last couple of weeks where we gave teachers a chance to talk through some of the issues they're having at their schools. And they're reporting to us that the students, when they come back to school and they work consistently, they're actually, improving. Their pace of improvement is there. Their engagement is there, really. And the data is showing that we seem to be getting back to pre-COVID numbers. Now, I want to be clear on that. Our scores weren't super high to begin with, right? Even pre-COVID, right? So what we're seeing numbers kind of return to that level, right? And which shows us that we're making good progress. And of course, we're not trying to make up everything within this 1 year. It's, we're looking at next year and the year after that. And with a substantial amount of resources that we're getting, we're really pumping a lot of, supports into the classroom, instructional materials, the technology and the online resources that the students can use to help, help catch up and work on particular skills, really is, I think is going to have a tremendous effect. So yeah, we're hopeful, and teachers and students are working really hard at that.
Joe, it's not happening in a vacuum though, right? I mean, this is like a national trend where schools just across the country are dealing with this massive learning loss. So you guys kind of have these examples, right, of how to move?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And we really try to keep up with, the U.S. Department of Education has really good summary briefs. We also stay in contact with the National State Boards of Education. Our board is really active with them. The superintendent is a member of the Council of Chief State School Officers. So they provide us with a lot of the summary briefs that are out there. And, one thing that I recommend to a lot of folks, whenever they read articles in the news or whether it be Ed Week or whatever, don't just read the articles themselves. Try to read the comments that are there, because a lot of times the comments help bring the dialogue, kind of more to light. What are teachers thinking out there? What are, other stakeholders and folks thinking about? So it really helps inform kind of the discussions that we have here on island. And one of the things that they talk about is, especially in districts that didn't have a lot of resources to begin with, like Guam.
Right.
The key there is really focusing on classroom and key instruction. I mean, we're getting resources into the classroom that we haven't had for years, and we're really excited about that. And we know that that's definitely going to have an impact, because those are things that teachers have been asking for a very long time.
Right. How are we with the teachers and just, I guess, like teacher staffing levels? Are we going to head into next school year at a deficit, or are you? Or not? I feel like we're kind of also racing the clock with these teachers' raises. So I guess I'll start there. Where are we with the teacher raises?
Yeah, so I was supposed to have a meeting yesterday for some reason, and they canceled it. But I know the committee is moving forward with their recommendations, and they should be able to share that soon. We agree that it's a long time coming. I mean, it's really something that I think our teachers talk a lot about. I mean, one thing about these folks is they're not complaining all the time. Like, that's not the first thing they bring up when we meet with them. But in a lot of social circles, they do bring up the fact that you go to school for so many years, and you take all these years to be to prepare for it. And then a lot of these younger teachers are very smart. They're doing things that we didn't do 20 years ago. They're projecting their lifelong earnings, and they're comparing it to their friends. We have some of the teachers who just graduated from high school in 2014 and 15, and I had a conversation with one of them, and they said, sir, if I were to work as a teacher for the next 20 years, this is how much I would be making. But I have some other friends who went into accounting, they went into engineering, they went into all these other fields, and in some cases they're going into fields that don't require degrees. But and then you try to anticipate what they'll be making 20 years later. It's just not comparable. So I think this is a good time, a long time coming, I think, and I'm glad that we're moving forward with that.
Do we have a dollar figure attached to it yet, Joe? Or
I'm aware, but I don't think I'm ready to share that yet. I don't want to until that gets official. But I know they're throwing around a lot of numbers.
Are they? Are they like pie in the sky? Are they sustainable numbers?
No, I think they're very realistic. I mean, I'm not an economist, but I know it's definitely going to have an impact on the government's budget. But again, if we're serious about saying that we want to support education, and in particular we want to support teachers and educators, then we have to take this effort serious.
What about the domino effect, Joe? I know we had Ms. Maria Gutierrez, Guam Education Board member on. I want to say it was earlier this year, possibly late. It was earlier this year, and she was talking about once we give the teachers, what about the rest of the GDOE staff that she feels, and a lot of people would agree, are underpaid? How are we gonna?
Yeah, it is definitely gonna have a domino effect, but I don't think there's any way to avoid that domino effect. You really have to consider compensation all around. You're going to have to look at administrator compensation. I mean, this conversation happened, I forgot how many years ago, but when they had that 14% increase or something, and at one point it was going to be just the teachers and they weren't going to include school administrators. Well, that would have caused two issues. Number one, back then, it was easier for school administrators to demote, for some reason. So there were a lot of administrators who were saying, I'm just going to go ahead and demote to teacher status because either I'll be making more as a teacher or there'll be, compensation's a little bit more fair as a teacher. Also, it would have prevented recruiting or the recruitment of administrators where, they would quickly calculate in their head, well, this is how much I make as a teacher. So really there has to be, some comparable approach to administrator salaries and of course staff. I mean, one thing that we know about schools is they really have to work as a team in a school. I mean, everyone from the custodians, for those that still have custodians, but for school aides to office staff and whatnot. I mean, they all work together, and in some cases, unfortunately, some of them are doing similar jobs. Yeah. We have office staff that are doing some professional responsibilities, especially when they watch classes and so on. Yeah. So then the question comes up about, compensation in those areas.
Joe, what about laptops, MiFis?
Yeah, so we continue to have laptops delivered. In fact, they're delivered on a consistent basis. We're really excited about how we now have cabinets and we now have mobile carts that could be deployed to specific classrooms so that teachers don't have to share. Right now, we're prioritizing the core classrooms as well as the teachers who've made those requests. So, before what used to happen is, you have a group of teachers who want to use the laptops for their classroom. They would have to coordinate with each other, to say, hey, I'm going to use it on this day, I'm going to use it on this day, and so on. But, now we're going to get to a number where teachers who really need them are going to have them readily available in their classrooms. This includes a set that we can utilize to regularly distribute to students so that they can take home. The MiFis in particular, the smaller amount, we have a small, about 3,000 some MiFis that are out there for student use and administrator use and teacher use. But we have a larger procurement that we continue to move forward, which we intend to kind of last for about another year. With the governor's office, and that's currently in procurement. But that's about 12,000 MiFis that we're looking at distributing and keeping that going. And if one of the things that we're looking at, because we're kind of knock on wood, that we're almost out of COVID, right? So the purpose is actually changing, right? One is, if we do have to close down again, and hopefully we don't have to shut down schools again. But in the event that we do, we have those MiFis readily available. But even if we don't, we still think that it would be a good idea to provide it to a number of families who don't have regular internet access so that we can use that as part of our strategy to help students kind of catch up and other, other things.
Joe, I wanted to ask you if you could comment at all about the special GEB meeting happening May 6th. I know that's a board meeting, but I guess on the execution side, how are you guys doing?
So, I know that there should be an announcement coming out soon from the rugby union. They just informed us about their review, based on the letter from the superintendent. So I have to get the information on what's the latest from Guam Rugby. But I do also know that the board is having that special meeting to determine how they intend to address this. There's some discussions about whether or not it's interscholastic, so let the interscholastic folks handle it versus whether or not it's actually a policy decision, at the board level. So I can't kind of predict how that's going to go, but I can say that a lot of folks are taking this very seriously. And, even the conversations that I've had, I kind of like the fact that we're having this conversation. I mean, really, I think it's been very respectful. I think it's been very compassionate. I mean, especially when they talk about supports for transgender students, even the ones who are against it, where they're saying they don't want, it's not because the student's transgender. They're focusing on the fact that it's a safety issue. So I really think this is a tough conversation, but it's a conversation that we need to have. And so far, what I'm hearing is it's been very respectful, and I think that's the way it needs to continue to be.
Yeah, I mean it's been very a delicate conversation, right? But you're right. I think for the most part, outside of some just wackos on social media, it has been pretty respectful.
Yeah.
But there was a big meeting last night, I heard, with a lot of the parents. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a meeting about this topic?
Yeah, and we're talking about transgenders and rugby. As I'm sure you know by now, as a story we've covered a lot, is there's a transgender female playing girls rugby, and for Guam High, and Guam High's team has actually been tabled while this whole thing gets sorted out. But Joe, you know what we talked about, learning loss.
I was not forgetting about the meeting, but yeah, I know about the issue.
Okay, yeah. So when we talked about learning loss, right, and you mentioned that nationally there are techniques and methods that you guys can use to kind of address that. What about with this transgender issue? I mean, not just in sports, but in the classroom. Do you guys kind of look at some of these national policies and glean what you could use and apply here? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, so it's actually from the U.S. Department of Education where we get our direct guidance. The hard part is even when we contacted the U.S. Department of Education and their subsidiary centers for support, their guidance is basically, it depends. Is you have to read the guidance and you really have to do your best to adhere to the guidance. And the rules and regulations and specific details are supposed to be out sometime next year. So, although the general guidance has been provided, the specifics is supposed to be provided within a year or so. So that doesn't help us, with the immediate challenges, right? So basically what we were told is really just look through the guidance, look at your scenarios, and try to adhere to it as much as possible. It doesn't say yes or no. It just means you have to understand, make sure that it's not discriminatory, make sure that your deliberations are open and have a logic behind it that do not necessarily discriminate because of now transgender being a protected class. And I think, it's to a certain extent that's frustrating because you kind of hope to just have an answer.
Right.
Just tell us yes or no.
Right.
But at the same time, I think these policy discussions are what we are required to have in order to come up with a decision. And I think really just based on the way the conversations have been going, I think, well, number one, there's a chance to be, litigation in any direction, right? So whatever you choose, there's always a chance for litigation. But, if you have the deliberations, if you really think through the logic, address the concerns, when you come up with a decision and you're able to demonstrate that, we're not just discriminating and just, simply saying, hey, yes or no, based on a student being, transgender, then I think we've met at least the spirit of Title IX and all the other, protections that the student, has.
Yeah, that's interesting, Joe. That we do want an answer today or tomorrow, right? But I think nationally, this issue is still being played out. I mean, across so many levels, right? Joe, is there anything in closing you want to throw out before we let you go?
No, there's just a bunch of stuff going on. We're preparing for summer school, so parents, if you're interested in sending your kids to summer school, especially if their, grades weren't too high and they need additional supports, please send them K-8. In high school, if they're missing credits, they can earn up to 2 credits. Please have your kids, contact their counselors, and sign up.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, Chris, good to see you.
There you go. Good talk. 7:29, Thursday, April 28th. That's Joe Sanchez. He's the acting superintendent right now because John Fernandez is off island, but I think he gets back tonight. Hey, 7:30, we'll take a quick break, and we're coming back with HRRA Director Lacia Casil responding to concerns from senators and as this $500 million Agotnia master plan is before legislators for action, and if they don't act on it, it goes into effect. If they do decide to table it for further review. We'll find out what Lawsuit thinks of that. All coming up here on the show. We'll take a quick break first, though. Thank you. My name's Chris, and we're back with more next. Good morning.
Banners.